I'm a real family person, so anytime being with my family, it's just a wonderful time for me. They always say you can pick your friends and pick your family, but I'm pretty okay with the family that I have. I couldn't have a greater family. And my mom's here. She's a great mom. I couldn't ask for a more amazing mom. She's there, when I need to talk or when I'm having one of my days.
Amanda is the life of the party. She loved people. She loved dancing. She just a all-around good-hearted person.
I was going to a neurologist, and he was treating me for pinched nerves. So I was receiving, shots and treatment, but I wasn't getting any better. So that's when he decided that we needed to do x-rays and stuff, and I went and had x-rays done. And within the hour, he was on the phone calling me, telling me that I was diagnosed with MS. And I would have to give myself a shot like 3 times a week, but being that 3 times a week, you would have thought I gave myself a shot every day. It just constantly made me sick. I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't drive. I couldn't cook. I couldn't live. Let's just say I couldn't live. I thought I would have to live my life, not being able to live and enjoy life. And that was just a real bummer for me. I've seen great results from infusions. To have to get them twice a year, that's a bonus for me. And I have to worry about taking a pill every day. And so my body is doing just that good with my infusions.
I was really concerned about where she was going to be going with this MS condition. That was a breath of fresh air when she found a treatment that was going to work for her. And I am so super happy. As being her mom, I was worried so much about my child. She had all her energy back. She was more upbeat. She was ready to go and do whatever the world had for her to do. And I am so grateful for the infusion, because it just brought life back to my baby.
Last year, I had a scare with my infusion because the insurance was paying only so much. And then it was time for me to pay. Look, I got to take this medicine that costs $50,000. I don't make $50,000. So how am I? So I got to choose to live or choose to die because I can't afford the medicine because I'm sick. Yes, I really think that medicine and being sick really should be taken into consideration, that everybody deserves a chance to live. I discovered Infusion Access Foundation on Facebook. I was advise anybody to just reach out to them, whether it's just for a kind word or needing help. And just to know that someone's there to listen to you. That's very important.
You have to have people that's going to support you. When you're going through a medical issue or personal issue, you just have to have that support and not feel alone, because there's always other people dealing with the same condition.
Alone, I am not motivated. Together, we are strong.
Alone, we are abandoned, but together we are supported.
I was setting up for a concert. We were moving some barricades, and I lifted not the way you're supposed to. It caused an injury that was pretty bad for the time, but then it healed. But ever since then, I would have like flare-ups of that region that would just come and then go away after like a week or two. But it wasn't until considerably later that then another flare-up around my tailbone region didn't go away after a few weeks, started to move up my back and into my shoulders and into my knees and so on and so forth. It kept on moving around. Eventually it settled in my feet, and it was very hard for me to move at a lot of points. Sometimes I would be having to use like a cane even to get around. And the only thing I could wear was my hiking boots that would keep my ankles stable. Otherwise, I couldn't really walk. None of my doctors knew what was happening. They ran a bunch of blood tests, and none of them came up with anything that was of diagnostic significance beyond I had high inflammation factors. One of my coworkers, she used to be a practicing rheumatologist. She just checked me out in general and looked over my test results, and she felt fairly confident that what I had was psoriatic arthritis. And it turned out that then when I saw another rheumatologist, they confirmed her suspicions, and then I got formally diagnosed. Unfortunately, the way that the system works for the most part is that insurances typically don't want to pay for the more expensive but more effective treatments. So they force you to go onto the inexpensive treatments that have more side effects, such as methotrexate, which is a chemotherapy drug. And so I did have to start with that. before I was able to move on to any sort of other medications. And that did not go over well for me. It definitely made me feel very nauseous and dizzy. It was definitely very frustrating because I knew that this disease is a progressive disease, right? It creates damage in your joints cumulatively, and unfortunately there is no medication that actually heals the damage. It only prevents further damage. So I wanted to get on the most effective medication right away, rather than have to worry about going through a medication that was not as effective, as well as also having negative side effects. Putting the interests of the profit of the company over that of the needs of the patient by putting patients on less effective medication first, especially in diseases like my own, which are progressive, it does a massive disservice to the patients, as well as to ultimately the medical system as a whole, from the standpoint of it costs more money to keep people healthy if you don't do the work in advance. My experience is one of many that is exemplary of how our for-profit medical system fails patients, and how it's also completely contingent upon what insurance you have and what is covered and what is not. I almost was non-medically switched. I was told at one point by my rheumatologist that they were told by my insurance that my current medication was no longer going to be covered next year, and so we had to start picking a new medication for me. It was very stressful during that period of time where I thought I was going to have to switch off my medication, not know if the next medication I was going to take was even going to work or not. Having an advocate on your behalf for people who don't know how to navigate the system, who don't know the underlying biology, is incredibly important, because those sorts of complex interworkings of the system and biology are intentionally obfuscated oftentimes from the patient in order to keep them on ineffective medications that is more profitable for the company or more profitable for the insurance companies. I would say these advocacy groups are necessary because of the inadequacies of the current system. So they do great work in situations like these, because the current system does not provide what it should from the outset. Alone, we're nihilistic. Together, we're empowered.
We are very close family. We do practically everything together. You know, one of the things that we love is that we spend a lot of time together. We're very supportive of each other.
I was diagnosed with lupus in 2009. I mentioned to the doctor and I said that there was something wrong with me. He looked at me and he said, "You look fine." And I insisted and said that I knew something was wrong. I knew my body and there was something going on.
So when my sister went to the doctor that day, you cannot see any symptoms visibly at all. So what I did is I was looking up all the symptoms that she had been having, trying to research to see what was wrong with her, what was going on. I kind of figured out that it was lupus, but I was scared. I was scared to let her know the fact that as a caregiver or someone that, you know, cares about your loved one that's in distress, that knows that there's something wrong, trying to search for the answers was very critical. And then not only that, being there and supporting her, because if she would have gone home that day, she would have died. So I told her, "You do not leave, stay there until you get an answer, and I'm on my way."
I insisted again. I had to get a second set of lab work. He did say then that something was wrong with me. I asked him what was wrong with me, and he said that my platelets were low.
We needed to know what was causing all these symptoms, what was causing her to feel so ill, but nobody was believing what was going on. And now that we knew her platelets were low, you know, she could die. Like, she wasn't leaving the hospital without an answer.
After my diagnosis, I didn't really know about lupus. After trying to figure out what it was and learning more about lupus, I realized that there was a lot of information that was mainly scary, which was there is no cure and there's no medication for lupus and you can die from it. After searching for information in Spanish, because my family's Spanish speaking and I wanted information for my mother, I realized that there wasn't much information. When I was going through the infusions, I started loom knitting because I was feeling very stressed, very depressed, and I needed to focus on something other than my condition and the treatments that I was going through.
Just like anything else, you have to go through this bereavement process of losing who you were before and who you have become now. So loom knitting was a coping mechanism that allowed Juana to relieve a little bit of her stress and anxiety. Once we saw that that was helping her, we would start loom knitting, and it just kind of became something that we continued to do. And we realized there's not a lot of information in Spanish. There's not a lot of support out there. So if this is helping my mom, this is helping Juana, it's helping us. Why are we not doing this for others? So we saw that there was a need and we wanted to fill that gap. And so we started Looms for Lupus. Loom knitting was her coping mechanism, but we knew loom knitting wasn't for everyone. So now we say that we illuminate, we empower, we advocate, and we also encourage others to take charge of their health, overall health, because mental health is included.
As patients, we have not only a voice, but we also know our bodies best. We know when something is not right, and we know when something is not feeling well. We are the CEOs of our bodies, so we not only have the right to ask if something is wrong, but it's also important for us as patients to advocate for ourselves, because we know our bodies best and we know when something is not okay.
So one of the reasons why we share her story is because we know how important it is to advocate for yourself. Being a CEO of your body, you're the one that knows what's right for you, and you can fire and you could go and hire whoever is going to do the work that you need to be done with your body. Alone we are lost, together we learn and support one another.
Well, I am a mom. I have 4 teenage children, 2 boys, 2 girls, and really my life consists of being a mom. Well, I was diagnosed with MS in 2018. Prior to, I was diagnosed with lupus, and then the medication that they gave me for lupus somehow triggered the MS that apparently had been laying dormant for years. I had to learn to live a different way, take different medicines. I could barely walk. I didn't have as much energy. I was tired all the time. It was all of a sudden, my insurance company decided that they wanted me to do kind of a step down treatment where they offered biosimilar medications before they would approve my Rituxan, even though I had been taking it for 3 years and both my lupus and my multiple sclerosis was stable. It was coming from an insurance company who, they don't deal with it. All they see is the money and, the procedures behind it, what's going to benefit them. They don't see how it's going to affect the actual patient who has to take the medicine to live. They did not consult me. They sent a message to my neurologist, and they called and said, hey, your insurance company doesn't want to pay for your medicine. They want you to take a different medicine first before they'll pay for your medicine. The first thing I always do is go to my support group. And so I went there and I asked the question, has anyone else gone through this before? Have you ever taken this particular medication before? What can I do? A young lady reached out to me and said, maybe I can help. Can I inbox you? And I said, absolutely. And so she reached out and she sent me an email and we corresponded that way. She then reached out to my doctor. I gave her permission to speak to my doctor. She worked with my neurologist and was able to get me approved for my medication. The woman who was helping me is a part of the Infusion Access Foundation, and she stepped in and she really put the ball rolling, or got the ball rolling, and got me approved for my medication. I think patients should have the right to choose the medicines that work best for them based on their diagnosis, not based on people who don't deal with this every day. Listen to the patients, because they're the ones who are dealing with these diseases, and they're the ones who know what works best for them to help them live a healthy life. The advice that I would give is consistency is key, and fight like your life depends on it. Alone, I struggle. Together, we thrive.
As a teenager, I never felt right. There was one instance when I was actually on a foreign exchange in Germany, and my arm just went numb. The doctors there basically said, oh, you have tendonitis of your elbow. And they bandaged it up and everything was fine. There would be times when I'd just be exhausted and people would just say, oh, you're growing, it's normal. And it wasn't until I was 24, I'd had these same sort of vague symptoms. And then I went to a meeting and I tried to stand up and my legs just wouldn't work. And so I went to the emergency room. They looked at me, they poked me, they prodded me. And then they handed me a sheet that said, hello, you have MS. I had really highly active MS. Every 3 months, I was out of work. I couldn't walk. I was, trying to crawl in. Because I'm young, I don't have the resources that I have now. I had a relapse that took about 6 months and 2 weeks in a hospital, 2 weeks in a acute rehab center, for a total cost of about $500,000. Luckily, I had very good insurance, but this is what we're talking about when we talk about the cost to both the health system and to people personally. I remember we just kept paying, and then the insurance company hadn't properly adjusted my claims, and so then we started getting these random checks back. We really couldn't afford to be in this position where we had given all this money to the insurance company. A year later, we got another bill, a surprise bill from a pathologist, and I tried to submit it to my insurance company, and they're like, no, we're past timely filing. I have not even seen this bill. I didn't know it existed. I really need you to just pay it. And it wasn't a lot of money, but it was the principle of the thing. And so I fought with them for 6 months. I finally got somebody on the other end of the phone I said, I was an inpatient. I had no choice. This doctor was assigned to me and I had to do this. Advocacy is everything. You will not survive in our broken healthcare system without advocating for yourself and ideally advocating for everybody else.
You don't know anyone's story, and my story is a unique one, but every individual story is unique. I didn't know that I had Crohn's until I was 35 years old, and I would battle these challenges with digestion and stomach pains from being about 6 years old up until I was finally diagnosed, but I didn't realize it was a disease. And I managed this through college, even sleeping in a tub because my body would feel like it was on fire and I would have these cramping pains. And you have to still get up every single day and perform at life. I had stomach aches consistently almost every single day for 2 years by the time I had gotten to diagnosis. And I tried to hide it from everybody because I was so used to going through these pains and performing and being resilient and having fortitude. But there came a point where I couldn't hide it anymore because of my husband hearing every day that I don't feel well. I don't feel well. I'm going to sleep and not feeling well. The physician said that he didn't see anything, but that he would do blood work. After I explained all these other symptoms I was having, from headaches to nausea, feeling like I had to vomit every time I used the bathroom, the sweating, the shaking, all of these things I was sharing, didn't hear from him. And this day I woke up and I could barely lift my head. A friend called me and it led me to actually go to the emergency room. When you get to the point of saying, I'm gonna get down to the bottom of this, because I know it's not normal to have stomach aches for 2 years and the doctor is not responding to that. You're challenged with, do I choose going to all of these appointments to investigate your health? Or do I say, you know what, I have to be at work, I'll deal with that later. And a lot of times when you're not getting answers consistently, that's what we subscribe to. I will deal with that later. You are worthy of more. Demand your answers. Where are the answers? At one point, I wasn't committed. I was just following whatever the doctor said and just going with it and checking off the box. I went to a doctor, check. I told them what was going on, check. I got no answers, check, and that was okay. It got to a point that it was not okay anymore. I believe that it was hard for me to be diagnosed because I'm a person of color. It wasn't based on patient wellness. It wasn't based on looking at me as an individual, seeing that this is what she's been presented with. This is the severity of her disease. A lot of times patients don't know what they can ask, what they can say, what they can require from their physician, so it makes them shy away, and there's this battle of the inferior versus the superior. When it comes to Black and brown communities, we're always told to respect authority, like that's really ingrained in us, but we don't always challenge the authority, and challenge isn't negative. And we have this concept that if I challenge, that means that I don't believe you and then I'm gonna be punished. I think the keys to functioning and living your best life is connection, community, and education. Look, search, talk about what you're going through, and you never know where that'll spark connection to something that will be willing to serve you. I also want to encourage people to share their story, because wherever there's a gap, wherever there's a challenge, there's someone that's going to hear that, and it's going to incline them to contact you or incline them to help you. Today, I know that I have a disease and I'm thriving. I have life now, and I can do things on my own terms and not be subjected to a space that only people can come to me in, like my bedroom or the bathroom. I deserve that. It's not easy, but you're worth it. I want you to choose life, because the moment you stop choosing life is the moment you die. You have to choose life. Alone, I am disruptive, but together, we are unstoppable.
I was tentatively diagnosed really young, about 2.5. For the next sort of 10 years, I was pretty much okay. I was actually overweight at one point, which looking at me now, you can't imagine that. And then around 12 years old, over the course of one summer, I lost 20 pounds. By 12, I was officially diagnosed with Crohn's. From that point on, life was very different from what it is today. It sort of feels like two different people almost now when you sort of think about it. And I never wanted to think of myself as sick, but clearly I was, and was definitely different. But you try not to think about that when you're that age. You're just sort of want to be normal and like everybody else. At the time I graduated high school, I think I weighed 76 pounds as a 17, almost 18-year-old going off to college. Got to college, continued to be on sort of a variety of medicines, nothing really sort of taking shape. Around 2000, Remicade came onto the market. I got the first infusion at Schneider's Children's Hospital. I remember it pretty much clear as day. I left there, and if you were the New York City Marathon was tomorrow, do you want to go run it? I could have done anything. I sort of felt superhuman after I got the first infusion. I immediately put on, I think, 7 or 8 pounds in the first 2 weeks. Felt great, was awesome. I started Remicade in 2002, officially. I got married in 2011, and from that point, I had gone from 82 pounds when I started Remicade. I was at 110 when I got married, and now I'm at about 130, 135. But it has sort of been a night and day experience, the sort of AD and BC when you tell time. And for me, my life is pre-Remicade and post-Remicade. By all accounts, at this point, I think people would look at sort of my life, any of the success that I've had career, professionally, personally, and be like, he has a great life, he's blessed, he's charmed, which is all in fact true. I wish I would have known that, that was where the story would have ended years ago. I think when you're sort of laying on the floor in a fetal position, rocking yourself to get rid of stomach pains, you can't really see the forest through the trees. When someone tells you you're in radical remission, and you don't even look like you have Crohn's, and nobody would ever know, that was crazy to hear, right? And then this year I was told I have to go off of it. the instantaneous spike in my heart rate, the terror probably in my mind and body around it was instantaneous, because all the things that we're talking about now just come right back, right? And you have a lot more to live for now, right? 2 kids, good job, money, all that stuff. You do not want that disappearing. You do not want to be in the fetal position ever again. Look, it pissed me off, like, a lot. I can't fathom why somebody sitting somewhere would say, this kid, now adult, parent, father, sibling, should go off of a drug that had radically changed his life. And for dollars, like for a few dollars. I'm not like immune to the idea of dollars and cents and good business acumen. Like, I get it. These are for-profit businesses. I run for-profit businesses. But the cost of somebody getting sick with Crohn's, like running up medical bills that must be in the tens of millions of dollars. And here I am, like, I don't ever see a primary care doctor that I need for any reason other than just yearly checkups. Health insurance companies can be wildly profitable, which they currently are. I think they can remain wildly profitable and treat patients and their members and clients better than they are today. If that choice had not been made for me by a health insurance carrier, at no point would my doctor have said, let's rip up the Remicade prescription, throw that out, and go to Inflectra. Nobody wanted to make this change. I didn't want to make it. I didn't want to make it for myself, for my family, for my kids, for anybody else, because at no point do I want to leave a state of radical remission for what I've now learned is called non-medical switching and forced into a protocol called step therapy. The step therapy, which I think has a whitewash definition via the health insurance companies, really should be called fail first. It means get sick and prove that you're sick. And so nobody who's in remission for a chronic illness ever wants to get sick. Nobody in the world ever wants to get sick before they're being told that they can get better and have to fail at getting better with one drug because it's cheaper before you get a drug that is more effective. What is prescribed for you is your doctor's choice, is your personal choice. If I get sicker and I show a decline, then I can appeal to get back onto a drug that I already knew worked. You do stuff that works and you repeat it over and over again. And this was working and it was repeatable. And at no point had I shown any intolerance to it, any decline, the idea of ever going backwards. Because for me, backwards, whether it's 90% or 95% or even 98%, means that I'm 2% closer to being the person I was pre-Remicade. Organizations like Infusion Access Foundation, the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation do amazing amount of work on behalf of folks like me. Nobody, when they're in the midst of being sick, is reading every terms and conditions, and especially not the ones hidden on page 97 of an agreement. The IAF is standing here and saying, hey, Neon Light, look at this. This is wrong. You shouldn't be allowed to get away with this. This shouldn't be the standard way of operating. Instead, we should stop fail first and step therapy, and it shouldn't be allowed because there shouldn't be a rule that says insurance companies together can tell people we want to get them sick first before we cure them. And I don't think anybody should sit in a room and try and think that the dollars and cents that they're trying to make by sort of changing my drug and not my doctor's choice drug should not be a rule. We shouldn't want as Americans to live in a country where that's the rule of law. Alone, I am the underdog. Together, we can topple Goliath.